Remember the time Clark Gable kissed Vivien Leigh in Gone with the Wind? Well, that kiss wasn't as romantic as the movie made it look. It was unbearable for Vivien. At the time, Clark had dentures in his mouth, and the smell from his mouth felt like a punch to the face. That was Hollywood's biggest leading man, but he wasn't the only one. Some actors stopped bathing because they thought it made performances more real. Others admitted on television they barely used soap at all. Welcome to Top Rewind, and subscribe, because I'm going to tell you about 7 Hollywood actors who declared war against hygiene. I'm going to begin with Clark Gable. Gable's gum trouble started when he was young. By June 1933, the day before he was supposed to start shooting Dancing Lady, he checked into a hospital with a fever and never made it to the set. Doctors removed almost every tooth in his mouth. The infection had crossed into his gallbladder. In an era before antibiotics, that combination killed people, but Clark survived barely. And Dancing Lady went $150,000 over budget waiting for him. What he got after the gums healed was a full set of dentures. And what came with the dentures was a mouth odor a mouthwash couldn't touch. In Gone with the Wind, director Victor Fleming had to push Leigh through the kissing scenes. I am pretty sure she must have thought she was being tortured. But the irony is that Gable off camera was one of the cleanest men in Hollywood. His army roommate, John Mann, remembered Gable shaving his armpits and chest because, as Gable put it, you smell with the hair. It makes you sweat more. He showered 3 or 4 times a day. He refused baths because he thought people shouldn't sit in the tub with all that dirt coming off of them. He even changed his sheet daily. But despite all of this, he still couldn't reach the one part of himself that smelled. He died November 1960, 10 days after finishing The Misfits. It was a heart attack and he was 59. His widow, Kay, always said the stress of waiting for Marilyn Monroe on that set is what killed him. That was her grief talking, and with what happened next, I understood Kay a bit more. His son, John Clark Gable, was born 4 months after his father's funeral. He was born into a world that knew his father more than he ever would. But here's what actually gets me. The world thinks it knows Clark Gable, but it doesn't. There's a gap between who he was in private and who we needed him to be on screen. That gap runs through every name in this story. So Gable constantly showered but still had bad breath. Well, Marlon Brando, he was worse. Time magazine ran a profile of him in 1955. The reporter visited his bungalow in Benedict Canyon, then his apartment in Carnegie Hall. A man who'd come to deliver a vacuum cleaner took a look at the place and said Brando didn't need a vacuum cleaner, he needed a plow. Shelley Winters told the story of Brando and his roommate, Wally Cox, the comedian, deciding one day to paint their apartment. They painted one wall. They put up the canvas, the buckets, and the brushes on the living room floor, and there they sat for 1 solid year. Brando and Cox just stepped around them. He and I have something in common because he also kept a pet raccoon. I think the raccoon got in because of all the trash that he kept around, and Brando just turned it into a pet. Him being a mess doesn't feel like laziness to me though. Almost like he was making the lack of hygiene a part of his identity, like a position he had to take. Brando was one of the most beautiful men in America, and the more famous he got, the more deliberately he refused to perform the role on stage. And he built the most bankable version of himself by doing exactly that. He died July 1st, 2004 at UCLA when he was 80 years old. He had pulmonary fibrosis, congestive heart failure, diabetes, and liver cancer. Near the end, his closest friend was Michael Jackson, who had a golf cart fitted with an oxygen tank so Brando could ride around and look at the trees. His estate sold his Mulholland Drive bungalow to Jack Nicholson, who tore it down because the mold was so bad. And Titaroa, his Tenetian island, bought in 1966 for $270,000 to escape Hollywood entirely. It's now a luxury eco-resort called the Brando, and it costs about $3,000 every night. Even in death, Brando is still earning the big bucks. Before I continue, quickly hit that like button and subscribe. That way, you'll help this story reach everyone. So now I'm going to tell you about 2 stories braided together, and it will be about John Wayne and Geraldine Page. In 1953, John Wayne starred in a Western called Hondo. The female lead was a 28-year-old stage actress from Missouri named Geraldine Page. It was her first major movie role. She had been trained in New York by Lee Strasberg. She was a method actress. This was the new wave, the thing Wayne thought was destroying acting. To prepare for her part as a frontier woman, alone on a homestead, Page did what her teachers told her to do. She lived the role. She refused to bathe. She ate her dinner with her hands. She combed her hair with her fingers. The result, according to Wayne's longtime personal secretary, Mary St. John, who was on set every single day, was that Page smelled terrible. The crew kept their distance. Wayne mocked her teeth, her appearance, and the whole enterprise. But get this, the woman the Duke laughed at became one of the most awarded actresses of the 20th century. She even got an Academy Award nomination for that film for Best Supporting Actress in 1953. This was an incredible feat, and to let you know how even more impressive this was, it was Geraldine's first film. She would go on to be nominated for an Oscar 8 times, but she didn't win until her last nomination in 1985 for The Trip to Bountiful. By then, she held the record for most Academy Award nominations without a win. Page died in June of 1987, 2 years after finally winning. Her death was from a heart attack in her Manhattan home at age 62. She was in the middle of a run of Blithe Spirit on Broadway at the time. Wayne had been gone 8 years by then, dead from stomach cancer in June 1979, age 72. He had already beat lung cancer in 1964, the surgery taking his entire left lung and 2 ribs. He blamed it on his 6-pack-a-day cigarette habit. His family founded the John Wayne Cancer Foundation in 1985. His son Patrick chairs it. So 2 careers, 2 cancers, 2 deaths. The Duke won every argument on that set in 1953. Geraldine Page won everything that came after. Page's story didn't end on the Hondo set. It took 32 years to finish. And there's a woman who ran the same play 4 decades later and understood exactly what Page had been doing. Her name was Halle Berry. In 1991, Halle Berry walked into Spike Lee's Jungle Fever with the same idea. She was a beauty queen turned actress. She wanted the role of Vivien, the crack hoe in the script. Nobody thought she could do it. Berry went into the bathroom, washed off her makeup, came back to read the part, and she got the job. To prepare, she did what Geraldine Page did on Hondo. She didn't bathe, she didn't brush her teeth, she didn't comb her hair, and she kept it that way for 2 weeks. She talked about it on Rosie O'Donnell, Wendy Williams, Sway's Universe, multiple times across multiple years. Samuel L. Jackson, who played her addict boyfriend Gator, had to act opposite the smell every day. But Berry believed her character was nasty, and that's what she needed to connect to. 8 years later, she won Best Actress for Monsters Ball, the first black woman ever to win it, and still the only one. So take that in for a second. The same industry that almost passed on her because she was a beauty queen ended up giving her its highest honor. And the path between those 2 moments ran straight through 2 weeks of not bathing and stinking badly. The industry didn't change. Berry just refused to let it decide what she was capable of. She will be 60 in August of 2026. She runs Hallie Holly with partner Holly Jeter. They have 7 films and 3 TV shows in development. She's in Crime 101 with Hemsworth and Ruffalo. She's also developing The President is Missing at Apple, playing the gender-swapped president. The girl who got nasty for 2 weeks in Brooklyn in 1991 will be playing the President of the United States. That's a long way to come. So I said Halle Berry is the contemporary version of Geraldine Page, but what if I told you that Matthew McConaughey is the contemporary version of Clark Gable's? At least, I believe he is. So in 2005, People magazine named Matthew the sexiest man alive, and he used the cover story to announce something he'd never tried to hide. He hadn't worn deodorant in 20 years. A man, he told the magazine, should smell like a man. His mother and the women in his life had told him his natural scent smelled, 1, like a man, and 2, like him. So he stuck with it. No deodorant, no cologne. That was 2005. We're now in 2026. So over 20 years and counting, and Matthew has refused to smell like anyone. I find that pretty interesting that a celebrity who spends so much time focusing on everything about their appearance doesn't care about deodorants. But I'm not saying he smells bad. You be the one to tell him that. Yvette Nicole Brown, his co-star on the Jess Cagle show in 2021, recalled getting close enough to him on the Tropic Thunder set. According to her, he smells like granola and good living. Kate Hudson, on Watch What Happens Live in 2024, confirmed she could smell him from a mile away on the Fool's Gold set. And by the way, Hudson added, she doesn't wear deodorant either. McConaughey now is 56. He just came off a 6-year acting hiatus with The Rivals of Amziah King. He's signed to play Mike Hammer again for True Detective creator Nick Pizzolatto. In January 2026, his lawyers filed 8 trademarks on All Right, to stop AI cloning his voice. The man who refused to smell like anyone but himself just trademarked the sound of himself too. At least Matthew didn't say he doesn't shower. I can't say the same for Brad Pitt. In 2009, Eli Roth was promoting Inglourious Basterds and told people a story about Brad Pitt. That story wouldn't go away. So they were filming a close-up. Pitt got close to Roth's face and said, "Damn, you're right." Roth said that he hadn't had time to shower. Pitt said, "Baby wipes, man, baby wipes. I got 6 kids. Man, I'm getting peed on all day. I don't have time to take a shower." That's maybe the most photographed face in the world, telling you that he handles personal hygiene with the contents of a Costco baby wipe pack. With 6 kids, this movie star's schedule, a wet wipe and a prayer. Pitt is 62. F1 just grossed over $600 million in the summer of 2025. It earned him the highest paycheck of his career at $30 million and picked up 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. But he's still in litigation with Angelina Jolie over the French winery, largely estranged from his older children, and dating Inés de Ramón now. The face on the billboard is 62, and it still sells out theaters. The baby wipe routine, you have to assume, hasn't changed. But Brad Pitt at least has an excuse. 6 kids, film sets, chaos. Same for Matthew. He wanted to smell like a man and himself. Julia Roberts didn't bother with excuses at all. She just told Oprah the truth. On April 22, 2008, Julia Roberts went on Oprah's couch as a part of a Green Living episode. The conversation was supposed to be about composting and organic food, but it pivoted to organic deodorant, and Oprah asked Julia which kind Julia used. She paused, then she said, "I don't actually use deodorant. I don't like to share that with a lot of people. It's just never been my thing." America's Sweetheart, Pretty Woman, Erin Brockovich, Notting Hill, the Oscar winner, the one woman in Hollywood our moms genuinely felt like they could be friends with, on national daytime television said she doesn't use deodorant. There's a kind of freedom that comes with being too famous to perform anymore. Julia Roberts had earned enough goodwill that she could tell Oprah the truth and walk out with her image intact. That's not defiance. It's really kind of like the other side of real power. You might be surprised how deep her power runs. Her former bodyguard later told a tabloid that Julia is a total hippie and would go days without showering, but I'll take that part with a grain of salt. The Oprah quote, however, that's on tape. She's now 58. In 2025, she starred in After the Hunt, Guadagnino's college campus drama. It bombed, but Roberts walked away with $20 million. She's filming Sammy Mail's Panic Carefully, due in February of 2027. So that's 7 stars, 7 different views on hygiene. Gable scrubbed himself raw because the dentures embarrassed him. Brando left paint cans on his floor for over a year because he didn't know anyone a tidy living room. Paige went filthy because method acting told her to. Wayne laughed, but she got 8 Oscar nominations anyway. Halle Berry didn't bathe for 2 weeks and won the first ever Black Best Actress Oscar. McConaughey hasn't worn deodorant in 40-ish years and just trademarked his own voice. Brad Pitt cleans up with a baby wipe, and his movie made $600 million last summer. Roberts told the truth on Oprah and kept getting cast. Gable, Brando, Wayne, and Paige, they're all gone. Berry, McConaughey, Pitt, and Roberts are still actively working. The hygiene was never the secret. The secret was that none of them, not one, was ever exactly who you thought they were.